The Saline Solution presents Naked, the podcast series that pairs it all: real life experiences, how they were dealt with, and the lessons learned. Facing the person in the mirror always makes us check ourselves, accept our past, and guides us to make the decisions that are best for our peace of mind. Are you naked? Here's your host, Saline Griffith. This podcast is for adults 18 years and over.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Naked podcast. And in this series, the relationship series, we will be talking about co-parenting after the end of the relationship. And we know how that is. It could be very tumultuous. Mine was not a good experience from my point of view. And of course, in every situation, it takes two hands to clap. So I'm really trying to figure out what went wrong in my interaction. It really wasn't a full-fledged relationship because it started badly from get-go. Remember, in the last episode, I told you all about my first boyfriend was when I was 19 years old. Well, that's the same guy that I had my kids with. How many years later? 7 or 8 years later. And I never had any contact with him, but our interaction after seeing him very randomly one day, 2 months later, I was pregnant. And that really had a lot of back and forth and a lot of him doing shit, me doing shit. And it really put a strain on our interaction. So I'm going to be chatting with a guest today who has a co-parenting scenario as well. But hers is slightly different, or different in a major way, because she doesn't have a bad interaction with her child's father. And that is something that I have been aspiring to for years and cannot seem to be able to nail that. In fact, my kid's dad and I, we don't even speak today, which is very unhealthy. But sometimes you need to keep the distance just to be able to keep the peace. So when I get back, I'll introduce you to my guest, and the conversation that we're having today is about co-parenting. And hopefully I learned something out of this in terms of my approach to the situation with Mr. Man. All right, so when I get back, we'll be chatting with Crystal. Your experience is what?
So my experience, so my son's dad and I, we lived together.
Okay.
and we broke up, not because of him as an individual or me as an individual. It had nothing to do with that, really. It was everything else that kind of surrounded that. And I think it was really at that point in time, I don't think either one of us really fought hard for it.
Okay.
So with that said, I moved out, and I and I decided to I had my my house, so I decided to move in there with my son. But we always had, it obviously had a certain level of tension at the start. And that tension, when I look back, it was really because of our emotion toward each other.
Yeah.
Because we were obviously still in love, but I think we were both headstrong at that point in time.
Right.
So it was where I am not saying much in terms of I want to get back with you, but I really do. I want to say that I was wrong, but the pig-headedness in us sometimes you don't want.
Yes.
And I think it was the same. Not I think it was the same on his end. However, because I mean the love is still there,
Right.
right? But I think for us, the biggest thing was our son,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, I grew up in a very broken home,
Okay.
right? And I think that in itself dictates how I move as it relates to family,
Mm-hmm.
right? My father lived with us, right in the same household, but he was not emotionally there,
I have a very
right?
similar experience. Yes, yes. Wow.
So, and then, it went further where, um, I mean, I never called my father daddy. The one
Okay.
time I actually called him daddy was when I got a whooping, right? And the daddy came out because I obviously wanted him to,
Just
stop
stop.
beating me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But he, whatever he was going through at that point in time in his life, it was all over the place. He smoked marijuana a lot, and then it went further along. So I saw a lot of things where my dad, would hit my mom, and it was constant fighting. Every single day, I am seeing
Mm-hmm.
knives down my mother's
Mm-hmm.
throat, all these things. And my mother basically fought for her life. And and it put me in a state where I have always said, I am never going
Yes,
to go through that or put my child through that, because that really left me with a lot of scars.
yes, likewise.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think that in itself, and my son's father is such a beautiful individual as well. He's not one to shout or argue. We never really had any of those
Right.
situations. And so it was very easy for me to make that decision and say, because when my mom and dad separated, that was it. I did
Mm.
not see my father for years.
My gosh, you sound like you're living my life.
Girl, I did not see
Yeah,
my
good.
dad for
Serious
years.
talk. Serious. We
Yes,
only
and
spoke to my father on Boxing Day just last year. After
right, oh
so
wow,
many years. Yeah, yeah. It
right,
was a very
yeah,
similar story. Hmm.
correct. So that, so and for over, I would say for about 6 years, I didn't see my dad. We had no communication. He fell off of the radar, and my mother did not want to have anything to do with him at all. So I decided, you know what? Even if we make it or not, you still have to be a part of my
It's
son's
life.
life, no
Correct.
matter what.
Yes.
And so it was easy for me because, again, it was not hatred. It
Right.
when we broke up, it was, yes, it was a lot of emotion, but there was no hate. There,
Mhm.
up to this day, it's still no hate. I only have but love for
Right.
him and his and his family, because I mean, to just see the joy when my son is there, and his grandmother, she's in her 90s, and that love and that
Hmm.
bond,
Hmm.
it is not something I would ever want to keep away from my
Of
son.
course not. Now the thing is,
So
when um when my kids were born, I remembered always trying to keep because my family, my mom and dad, whilst they were married, five of us they had, but my father is a West Indian man, so he has children before, during, and after the marriage. My mom passed on
yes,
5 years ago, and he would make. My mom is the one who was very instrumental in all of us being close. Even the stepchildren, as they call it, we're all close. Well, the majority of us. And when I saw that he had two other children from before, I'm like, okay, this is how I met this man. He doesn't come alone. So it was easy for me to encompass the children and involve them in their lives. I would pick them up and bring them to his home, and we never lived together. But I don't know where things fell apart, and the communication was so horrible. And I think I'm still going through a little culture shock there, because for me it's like this is not what I want. So what you just
Right.
described there, where you spoke about the love that you have for your son's father, I always say I will always love this man, I will always care for him, but we can't be together because our communication is so horrible that I'm like, okay,
Right.
I'm willing to step aside. You be you and I will be me. But when it comes to parenting, we definitely have to have a united front. We have to know how to
Right.
communicate, but we're not there after so many different attempts.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing is, I think there are so many different things that dictate that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like like I was chatting with a girlfriend of mine recently, and she had she has so many, terrible experiences with, her last marriage and co-parenting as well. And I had to tell her, I said, listen, even if this man is an us, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because and the scenario really came from he messaged her and he asked her, I would like to or I want to pass for my son on Sunday. And her response was, are you asking me or telling me?
Mm.
And he said, well, I'm telling you. And then she said, no, right?
Takes two hands to clap.
So correct. And I told her, I said, I think, okay, she keeps harping on the fact that, you know, he said he told me he did not ask me. And I said, okay. I said, but this could have gone down a different road. He could have said, okay, you know what, I'm passing for my son. If you indeed had had plans with your son, well, just say, well, hey, I already have plans, could you push it back or whatever, right?
Right, right.
Or even if it even went down the road, you're asking or telling me, and he said, well, I'm telling you, you could have not get hasty about it, but you could have, at that point, I would have made it into a joke,
Okay.
right? I would have
Mm.
made it into a joke, instead of, enabling that, and, that because it's already, going down a negative road. So instead of enabling that, I would just make it lighter, right? And after some time, I feel that person would realize, hey, you know what? I am not about fighting you. I'm not a threat to you. You know what? It is about the kids,
Mm-hmm.
right? More than anything else.
Right.
So I have a very open policy with my son's father,
Mm-hmm.
right? When I moved out, we very casually said he will take him on a weekend. I
Right.
will have him in the week. No problem. We are so open. It is not hard and fast. And the thing is, he supports me in a way that whatever are my goals,
Mm-hmm.
right? And let's say, as much as I have my son in the week and I have to work or whatever the case may be, right? I can just say, hey, Jay,
Pick him up for me.
Jay's coming by you.
Mm-hmm.
And he would not ask, okay, why? He would not even ask. He
Mm-hmm.
would just use that as an opportunity. Okay, cool, no problem. And vice versa. So as much as my son is with me during the week and he is by him on a weekend, it is not hard and fast. I could simply say, hey, you know what? He's staying home this weekend. Cool, no problem. Or I
Right.
would say, hey, you know what? I'm dropping him off Tuesday because I have something to do, no problem. And it
Right.
is that open relationship. I go there any day, anytime, whether he's there or not,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
He can come here any day, anytime, whether I am here or not. Quite frankly, he is the my extra keys for my house. He is the person who has them,
Right.
because the way I look at it,
Hmm.
if anything is to happen to me today or tomorrow, yes, my family is there, whatever, but he is the primary person
Yes.
that will be taking care of our child,
Right.
right?
And this is
So
what I
whether,
was aiming for. This is really what I was aiming for. So in my mind, I'm like, where did I go wrong? Because I want to take responsibility for my part in the whole thing, right? And
Mhm,
I cannot, because I have a girlfriend. Your scenario that you're describing, the relationship that you have with your son's father, it sounds so similar to his, and I always admire their. We always go to his house and hang out. He will cook our crab and dumpling for us, and
mhm,
and I am like, this is life. This is goals because I love it. The child or children will feel comfortable knowing that yes,
mhm,
mom and dad love me to the extent where they will interact with each other, but
mhm,
I don't have that, even though for me it's an open policy as well. He could come here whenever he wants. Oftentimes I would have left them there, but it's so seesaw that I don't know what to expect on any given day. And I oftentimes wonder, it's based on people's life experiences because he didn't grow up with a family per se.
right,
You know some of those scenarios where there wasn't a father around and the mom went away just to work. So he was with family here, so he doesn't know what it's like to have your parents around. And I think
mhm.
for him it was kind of easy to do that. But I didn't grow up like
I
that.
Do you think though it may be, or part of his anger or frustration that may be pushing back comes from the decision of having the twins when he did not want to?
But then I said to him, I can do it alone. It's fine. But I'm not doing that because I had my mom and they for support. So I said, I will understand because I know when people make up their minds, because for me it was a big change as well. I was going to England to study where these two
Hmm.
children come from. But in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is what God wants for my life. And I had to recalibrate everything, which I'm still trying to figure out, by the way. And, it's like, this is what we have to do. And then I saw him getting involved. And I had just broken off an engagement. So I got pregnant 2 months after I broke off that engagement. So
Wow.
that transition was really, the window was so small. And even when he said to me at that point in time he wanted to settle down, I said, I'm still dealing with that. This is before I was pregnant. I said, I'm still
Right,
dealing with that breakup. You don't just have a clean breakup. It's 7 years, it's a lot going on. So give me some time to deal with that. And within that, give me some time is when I got pregnant.
right.
Um, I don't know what happened along the way, but as I said, he did have someone else in the picture. I respected that.
I do think though, with having someone else in the picture, I think
Hmm.
both parents need to really sit and have that conversation,
Hmm.
because more often than enough, people don't do that.
Hmm.
I would have someone, you would have someone, and you don't sit and you have a conversation surrounding the child
Yeah,
as it relates to other people coming into the child's life.
right.
So I would tell you, after we broke up, I had one relationship,
Hmm.
right, which did not last. But it was okay. I told him, listen, you know what, I'm seeing someone, and he did say, okay, no problem. Um, However, he does just know that I am this child's father,
Of course.
right?
Hmm.
And that was very clear. And that relationship did not work.
Hmm.
However, I have already, I think, have it vested in my head that it is going to be very difficult for anyone who is trying to enter my life,
Yes.
because my child will always be my priority. And the thing is, when you have children and we as parents make mistakes sometimes, and we don't even think about it. So we have someone, just come into our life, and we expose the child to that person,
Mm-hmm.
and that child, they may see a different culture
Right.
altogether,
Correct.
right? And that it affects children. And I can tell you, because again, I went through that. So for me, I would not bring anyone close to my child. And, so it would always be very hard, because,
Mhm.
people, especially Trinidadian men, okay, yes, they understand a situation, but they rarely don't,
They do
right?
not.
And, and it is all, yes, so it will be, listen, you know what, you may only have a small window, to interact with me and be with me,
Mm-hmm.
and that's primarily when I'm not with my son. And then you have to also, deal with the factors, I may have other things to do. I may have friends, I have my personal time.
Correct.
So,
So the
and a lot of
availability is kind of limited.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
it is very limited. So I can safely say I know for a fact it is a very slim chance of me really getting into a
Mm-hmm.
relationship like that, because I respect my son and his space,
Yes.
and anybody who's getting into a relationship with me has to understand and respect that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, right, because, and I can tell you, my child does not know anybody other than his father,
Same here. Same
right?
here.
So
If you're not, I
for
was about to ask you that question. What are your thoughts on a non-steady partner? And not just for us as the female, because on the flip side of that, their father will he entertains friends.
mhm,
And I oftentimes will say to him, you remember, these are two teenagers, they're impressionable. So if it is
yes.
that you have company over, let me know. I will come pick them up. I will come pick them up.
Mhm.
Because I know you're a man, you want your space and all of that. But I am told it's none of my business or whatever. But I said, you have a boy and a girl, so you want to make sure you're sending the right message to both of them.
Right. Yeah.
But I
Yes.
also don't
And
want to come across as though I'm telling him what to do.
right.
As you rightfully said, your children are the priority. And I
Yeah.
can do it. My children they've never seen a man home by me. Once
Right.
they are
Yeah.
with me, no one is allowed to come over or sleep over or anything like that.
Yes. Yeah.
And
So
that was also a challenge for me in terms of relationships. I can't tell you last time I was in a relationship because they are the priority. And
yeah,
it's not that the
and
people
there's
won't accept your children, but um, when they were younger, and of course they were staying with me, when the kids were much younger, I wasn't available to go anywhere because,
yeah.
hey, I
Yeah.
have the kids. I don't want to leave them with a sitter, or I can't leave them home alone. Now they're teenagers, I can do that. But no, no. So I
Yeah.
understand the part with where getting into another relationship might be a bit, and because of how I always gave their father's role such precedence. I'll say, I don't know what he's doing. Let me see if he's available. Most of the guys will say to me, but you still in love with this man? I said, no, he's the father of
Mhm.
my children. I have to give him that respect,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know?
And for me, I think the hardest part would be, so we do all special occasions together
Okay,
as a family.
that's
So
nice.
whether, yeah, so for my birthday, him and my son, they will take me out. For his birthday, we will take him out or go home. Christmas, all these things we
Mm,
do together as a family. Mother's Day, Father's like Mother's Day
I
this year.
love that.
He would cook. Hey, come over. I'm doing
Does
lunch,
he
and
have a
also,
partner?
yes, recently, yes, he does.
Wow.
Yeah, he does. And I think, well, I met her for the first time, well, for his birthday. But men really didn't introduce me introduce her as the partner, but
Right.
but
We have that
you
sixth,
felt,
we have that
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah. But
instinct.
you felt the tension and stuff like that. I mean, I
Yeah.
joked about it after,
Right.
after the fact,
Mm-hmm.
but again, I made him, I still just kind of reminded him in terms of, now, to be honest, he is a very responsible person,
Right.
right? And he will not ever put my son in a situation that will endanger him, or
Mm-hmm. Have him
and
uncomfortable.
yes,
Right.
and he did, though. We did have a conversation recently, and I said, listen, I would prefer if you are spending time with this person that my son does not, that my son is not
Not
around,
just yet. Yeah.
right? However, he did make it very clear to me. He said, listen, I cannot promise you that that will happen, right? He was very straight. He said, because of how
Mm-hmm.
my time is, there may be crossover.
Okay.
However, I want you to know that nobody is going to take your place, right? So he basically made me feel a certain level of comfort. And then
Right.
again, as I said, because I know he is a very responsible person, right? I know he will not pick up, just, someone off of the street, just,
Right.
and worse yet, bring it, bring, and, around my son,
Right.
you know so it so that in itself, as much as, I mean, although he told me that, I mean, I still wasn't, I still I still
Yeah.
figure, hey, what, if you have to go, go out with, I will
Yeah.
come pick up my son as well. However, I do also have to, respect the fact, and know that, hey,
Mm.
you know what, he's not irresponsible,
Yes.
and he will not, like, he will not, like, say, do things in front of my son as well.
The same thing you were saying just now about, that he's responsible and he will not put your son in harm's way. That's my only consolation. I know that their father is definitely not going to put them in harm's way. So that's the only thing that keeps me breathing. But to not be in constant communication, you see how you all will have conversations.
Mhm.
That is what I was aspiring toward, because I remembered there were times when I will boil down the place because I'm very dramatic. I'll boil down the place. I will write an email. I will tell him, let's talk about it. I will apologize for things that I don't think I needed to apologize for, but just to reset and say, okay, let's
Right,
start over. I am not begging you to be in a relationship with you because I've realized that we are not compatible. But I
right.
really think it's very, very important for us to be amicable, especially for the children's
Mhm.
sake, for the same reason of what I grew up seeing. And I made that resolve years ago. When I have my own family, it's not going to be like that. My mother was
Right,
taken advantage of for the entire marriage. She was the one who was taking care of everything. And my father will come home drunk and carry on and mash up things in the house. And I'm like, no, I would never put my children through that. So thankfully, their father is not like that. He's a very calm
mhm.
person as well, but very strong minded. So somewhere along the line, I must have done something.
I was now going to ask you, maybe you should have that
And I
conversation with
really
him.
ask the question a lot of times. I'm like, what is it that I have done? Tell me. I am not guaranteeing that I could fix it because it's in the past. But if I know about it, at least I will know how to move. So this is where my decision right now for us to sever all kinds of communication. I said, you know what? Let me step aside because apparently my presence irritates him. I said, let
Mhm.
me step aside. Because the kids even asked me, how come he's so good with the other two mothers? He's like real buddies with them. And I said, but that's all I wanted. But when it comes to me, he gets very serious when he sees me coming around. We always have an argument. So I said, this is not very healthy. It's very toxic for us and it's toxic for the children to witness. So I said, you know what? Let me remove myself and just communicate with him with regards to the children only.
right approach. I think you are using the right approach in terms of just stepping aside. Have your communication with your kids for now.
Yeah.
However, still, you know, still when it comes to important things, still converse with him,
Mm-hmm.
right? Be very polite. I mean, even if he is being, very serious towards you,
Mm-hmm.
try and lighten it up a bit, because what I'm hearing here is like a lot of emotion
Mm-hmm.
where the two of you all are concerned,
Hmm.
right? And so there may be some emotion hidden away for something that might have happened in the relationship, and it is not it has not been dealt with.
Hmm.
So, and sometimes that brings about a certain level of anger in someone. So
Yeah.
it it really comes like, someone, you would be in a fairy tale, you're totally in love with someone, and then one day something happened and that person felt that, hey, you know what, I opened up everything to you. I probably
Hmm.
didn't open up to anybody else, but I've
Right.
opened up myself and I gave my all to you. And and basically you've betrayed me, you've betrayed my trust. So then that brings about a certain level of anger. So that love then turns into anger, because every time that person see you, they get angry because you've
They're reminded
opened
of,
them up.
yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And because you've opened them up in a way that nobody else did. So, and they're just angry. Sometimes they're not even angry at you, they're angry at themselves.
I
And
think
they
it's
just
that.
do not know how to control it.
No, I really, because I'm saying to myself, I involve this man in everything.
And
Everything.
continue and continue to do it. Continue to
Of
do it.
course, because
Yes.
I always respect people's roles. I said, even if he's behaving like a jerk, I can't react to that. At the end of the day, he is their father. I know that he loves them. So that's what I am. That's the only thing that keeps me going where that is concerned.
Yeah.
Of course, it hurts a lot because I'm like, what did I do? And I'm a very sensitive person as well. So I'm like, what have I done? I didn't even say I'm bringing anybody around the kids or anything like that. When I remembered one of my sisters telling me one time from our conversations that she would overhear, it's like we're always going tit for tat. And I said, but I'm not taking responsibility for that because I'm not that person. And she's like, you don't know it. You may think that that's not what you're doing, but you're not listening to it from an outside perspective. And she said,
Right.
it does sound like that. So I had to check myself on that one. And this is when that decision came around to say, you know what? Let me just pull back. It doesn't make sense. And I think he has a problem with the way that I communicate. Because sometimes when I want to get a point across and be clear, I will be sounding like this. I need to speak slowly so that you will understand where I'm coming from. And I've been told it's very
Well,
condescending.
I
So,
was now going to say that. I was now going to tell you that is very condescending, because that is literally like when my son was around 4, 5 years old. That
uh-huh.
is how I would speak to him. So it comes across that like you're talking to a child.
Oh my
So
God.
yes,
Mhm.
yes. So
I had to
so
check
yes.
myself when she told me that. It's like, you know what? Whilst I don't agree with it, I still have to look at it. I can't play wrong instrument because I was really, I left myself vulnerable to say, whatever it is, I want to fix it for the children's sake. I know the chance of us being together again, and then the next day we were always off and on, off and on, off and on. For his birthday last
That I
year,
think is a big problem. So,
yeah.
and I think that because that you see what tends to happen, it is you see that emotion, and that is what I believe
Hmm.
causes a lot of tension in relationship, and even it affects the co-parenting. You see that back and forth.
Yeah, boy.
So for me it was easy. As much as, listen to me, I tell you, after we broke up, I mean, yes, I still love this man, we still, I mean,
Hmm.
Lord knows. However,
But you didn't listen to Tony
we
Braxton.
No, hell no, no, that no. No, 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 I did not. Right? But I mean, but I still, I mean, I had my moments, I had
Yes.
my moments. I had my moments where I cried and I said, and I want to call him and tell him how I feel and, and all these things. And then I had to, just stay in my little bubble, cry, and then move on and not
Process,
say
yeah.
anything
Hmm.
because I don't want him because again, it is just going to keep putting us through an emotional roller coaster,
Hmm.
and we are going to lose sight of what is important,
Right.
which is our son.
Wow, a lot of information sharing here, and we have to make sure that you get it all in. So, next week, we're going to continue the second part of this episode of co parenting, and hoping that you do tune in for that because the information is very useful. The experience, rather, is very useful in terms of what I've experienced, what Crystal is sharing, and of course, from your own point of view what you think about it. And of course, as usual, I would love to hear from you. So make sure to send me your comments in the comment section on Facebook on the Saline Solutions page or on Instagram, the Saline Solutions, Saline G. Looking forward to hearing from you each and every time. And remember, be a good human.